The Women of Ill Repute, with your hosts, Wendy Mesley and Maureen Holloway.
We're about to meet Loreena McKennitt. I'm not going to lie. So when I think of Loreena, I think of mists and magic and Christmas and velvet dresses and harps and her massive red curls and fairy tales and haunting melodies.
Wow, that's one of the worlds that Loreena McKennitt has created. But she's an astute businesswoman too. She has her own record label. She finances her own concert tours.
Did you know that Lorena's a French knight?
No.
Yes, and she's also a colonel in the Royal Canadian Air Force. I'm not even making that up.
Yeah, I did know that one. I think she's an honorary one, but she could probably fly a plane if she wanted to.
She probably could ride a French horse too because she wanted to be a veterinarian originally.
Yeah. So Loreena McKennitt, she's a composer, she's a singer, she sold millions of albums. Her latest is called The Road Back Home. It was recorded last summer at several folk festivals where Loreena performed with a group of Celtic musicians.
It was a simpler time, and it refers back to a simpler time, as they say. But Loreena is interested in, and she's a real polymath, and she's involved in a huge array of topics: childhood development, world issues, puppetry, and the history of hats, to name a few.
So let's see what we can tap into under that massive red hair. And Loreena joins us now. So, hey, Loreena, how are you? So nice to see you.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, we're good.
We're good. We're really good.
I just asked Maureen because I know she had red hair, so I'm sorry to start with something so trivial, but I am.
But it's a
fascinated.
trademark.
Yeah,
it is a trademark for you. Yeah, I had red hair for about 20 years, I guess.
So I thought it was real, but you dyed it.
Yeah, yeah, I did because I have the skin condition. I have a skin condition of a redhead. I have the skin tone of a redhead, and I also have the ancestry. I'm Irish of Irish ancestry, and then I really liked it until it started growing in this color. And then, but I mean, Loreena, this is.
How about the temperament?
Have you always? You have the temperament.
The temperament.
But I mean, were you ever teased for being a ginge?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm called redhead woodpecker and fire engine and all those wonderful terms. I think redheads are renowned for having a feisty, temper perhaps, or passion or something, but some of it comes just from defending yourself from your hair.
Right?
And your freckles.
It's true. It's you just have to. It's fight or flight, and you got to choose to fight, and then that's also an Irish tendency.
Yeah, well, maybe I've been in love with too many Irish men, but they all seem to love red hair. Don't men love red hair after they finish fighting with you?
Hard to say.
So you did want to be a veterinarian growing up in Manitoba.
I did. I mean, I grew up in a small town called Morden, about 80 miles out of Winnipeg. And my grandparents lived on a farm just a few blocks away from where we lived in town. But my brother and I spent a lot of time on the farm. And then when we went into high school, those years, we were working there, doing chores. I remember feeding cattle in the middle of the winter when it was minus 35 or something. So being around animals like that, I fell, very much in love with them all, and I would be wanting to bring all the baby ones home to my bed.
Oh yeah.
But but music really chose me rather than me. I started piano lessons when I was 5, and my piano teacher made it a prerequisite for all her students to be part of a choir. So I started singing at the age of 5 as well. And so this was before I could read music or read words. And I was building, I guess, those brain synapses between my ear and my brain through music. But I did want to be a veterinarian. And I still actually maintain I've got the internal disposition of that. I don't really have a huge appetite of being a public person, but that comes with the other side. So
I find it so interesting. I mean, you talk about how music chose you, and you're I want to talk to you so much about all of your music, but I'm also fascinated that you left Winnipeg, you moved to Toronto, you started busking on the streets in Toronto, but you're like this big privacy activist now, and you
Why
started
would it?
keeping emails of like data of people back when you were busking. Like, how did that all come about?
Well, I moved to Ontario in 81 to work at the Stratford Festival Theatre. And I worked there for 4 years from 81 to 84 in different capacities. Um, and all the while I was acquiring more familiarity with the traditional folk music. Uh, and then in 85, when I wasn't invited back to the festival, I decided that would be the year that I would make my first recording. So I borrowed the money that my family had set aside for my veterinarian studies and made my first recording. It was done in a studio that was in a barn just outside of Aurora, Ontario. And I made it in a week, which I'd love to do now. We're going to rip a track and mix a recording in a week.
Yeah.
And I said to the engineer, I said, well, I want to run out some cassettes. Do you know where I could get some cassettes run off? And he said, oh, yes, there's a company in Toronto called Dynapap and take the master there. And so I did, ran off a box of 30 cassettes. I gave about 15 of them away. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do with the rest? And I thought, well, I'll go and do that tried and true exercise of busking on the street. So I parked myself at the St. Lawrence Market on Saturday mornings. Actually, I would go in on Friday nights and sleep on somebody's couch and then post there. And I was able to sell my cassettes, and then people. I remember it was Kenny Slater from Sam the Record Man that found my just dialed 411 and asked for my phone number in Stratford and said, "We have people asking for your recordings. Could you
Hmm.
give us some on consignment?" So that was really the organic way that this all began.
Did you busk with your full size
Yeah.
harp? My father used to tell this joke. I took my harp to a party and nobody asked me to play because it's not the most portable of instruments.
I mean, I don't play a full-sized harp. I play troubadour harp. It's a harp that a lot of classical harpists learn to play on before they proceed to a classical harp. But at the time that I was acquiring a harp, I was the proud owner of a 1978 Honda Civic, and that's what I'm dictated what size of harp I liked around. But what's great about it has most of the range of a classical harp. It doesn't have the pedal systems, but it did fit in my Honda Civic. So that's what I've got a few of those troubadour harps.
But you play all sorts. You're a multi-instrumentalist. You have, I mean, your latest pictures show you with the accordion,
Right.
which is also a traditional instrument.
Yes, I mean, I play the accordion just a bare minimum of it, enough to give the song texture. Usually other musicians are holding the weight of the arrangement. I'm just adding color. Same with tin whistle. My primary instrument is piano and my voice. And then I taught myself to play harp. So I play the harp well enough to accompany myself singing, but I wouldn't say that I'm a fabulous harpist. In fact, if you put me next to a properly trained harpist, you'd have a good giggle.
My husband is named Liam. He's Irish.
Oh, wow.
And he wishes I had red hair, which I don't. And he watches Celtic, so I've been calling it Celtic music, but it's obviously not. It's Celtic music. So why, like the whole Irish thing? How did you fall in love with? Did you go to Ireland? How did you?
Well, I
become
was,
what you've become?
I found myself, so I went to school in Morden until about grade 11, and then I went to a girls' school in Winnipeg for my grade 12th year. And then I got integrated into the folk clubs, and there were these traditional music sessions that were happening in this working shop on Main Street on Sunday nights. And many of the members were from England and Ireland and Scotland, and people would bring their vinyl recordings and we'd swap them and learn tunes off them and come back the next week or the night whenever we came back and play them together. So that was really, and when I heard that music, it was like falling in love with at first sight. It was something really inherently infectious in the Celtic music that attracted me to it. Less so than it was my music that came from my own family heritage. my father was a livestock dealer, my mother was a nurse, and nobody was really musical in my family. But that was really when I got smitten by it. When I moved to Stratford, I was already I realized that it was impossible to fully appreciate the folk music without understanding the social, economic, political circumstances from which it sprang. So I took a course in Irish history from the University of uh, Waterloo, I guess it was. And then I also started traveling to Ireland, um, particularly the West Coast, to County Clare up to Donegal, where the music is really the strongest. Uh, yeah, so that's how I came to fall in love with it. But it was really, as the years went on, I realized that there were some really excellent musicians who were playing the traditional music. And I knew that I didn't really think I would do it as well as they. And I was curious to whether or not I could write some of my own material. And then about 1991, I attended an exhibition that was the most extensive exhibition ever assembled of the Celts, and it was in Venice. And I realized that they were much more than this mad collection of anarchists from Scotland and Ireland, Wales and Brittany, but they were this vast collection of tribes that had fanned out across Europe and into Asia Minor and dated back to about 500 BC. So I then decided I would set my career course on a kind of active musical travel writing, which found me putting myself in all manner of places over the years, including a Trans-Siberian Express from Vladivostok to Moscow in December of '95.
Wow. Wow. I was just in the west of Ireland. Was it this year, Wendy, or last?
I don't
It was
know.
last
No
year. It was
blur.
23. And I've been there several times. And I grew up. My father was from Dublin. And I took up Irish folk dancing.
You're
And
Maureen.
That's the
yeah,
one where
yeah,
your
yeah,
arms
yeah.
stay straight, right?
That's
And
where
it's
your
just
arms stay straight
legs
because you're
move.
being defiant, right? That's
Oh.
why. Oh yeah, that's where the Scottish are all like, we don't care. We'll throw our arms in the air. But I noticed when I was there last that that Irish music, as they call it, not Gaelic or Celtic, is the kids are as much invested in it as the parents and
Yeah.
grandparents. It's a transgender. You go to the pub, and it's everybody knows the songs. Whereas I think here we kind of relegated it for a while to our parents' generation or our
Yeah, I
grandparents.
think it's a huge success story that Ireland has been able to do this, particularly at a time when there's such a proliferation of devices of all kinds. But in some ways, when you're just saying that, it reminds me, or it feels like their traditional music is to them what hockey is to us. There's a real cultural embracing and a strong identification of it, and I think they recognize that there is a worldwide love of the Celtic music. There's something, that infectious quality that attracted me to it transcends boundaries. So I think it's amazing that they've really nurtured a cultural system. I mean, a system isn't the right word, but they have festivals and there's programs on the radio and so on. There's a whole fabric, pardon me, of some of activities that nurture it and where people are proud to be part of it. So when the children see this, yeah, they're going to get learning the tin whistle or the fiddle or the bodhrán.
Well, and you're going back on tour this summer, which is 2 places in Ireland and a whole bunch of other places. But why? I mean, you're getting up there. You've been around. You made a lot of money. We're still going, but why are you?
Here-
What is it? Especially I'm in my basement, so it's easy. But you're getting out. You're financing everything. You're doing everything. You're like, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people there still seems to be people that want to hear what we're doing. So that's wonderful. Last fall when we were touring in the United States, I think our attendance rate was about 85%. The spring tour that we're about to do is about that level of sales. And I think, as long as you can and you feel well and you're welcomed, I say, why not? Um, it's yeah, but it's the hardest part is actually setting up the tour. Um, it's a design process, and I sit kind of like an executive producer of it because I've never had a manager. For all intents and purposes, I am the manager of the production side of the. I'm the widget and the manager. So there's the
Wow.
music production side and distribution, then there's the touring side, and there's a lot that goes on to. But once, if you design the blueprint of a tour well, and we work with people I've worked with for many, many years, musicians and crew. It's like a well-oiled machine. And it's really quite special to get together with the musicians and play the music. Sometimes I feel I could just do that whether there was an audience there or not. And now with this upcoming touring, although we're not touring on the road back home, the traditional recording that I've just released, um, I'm singing a song from that recording called Wild Mountain Time. And this is a traditional piece that I sang one of the earliest days of the Winnipeg Folk Festival. And all the artists would get on the stage the last night and they would sing this together with the audience. So this past fall this past fall, I put the words in the program and I invited the audience to sing with me at the end. And it was really quite touching. And I was thinking about in this day and age, how few occasions people have now to sing together. And music has been relegated to being so much of a spectator sport rather than a participatory one, which is what you see so much of in the West Coast of Ireland.
I find it really interesting to, know that you have this ethereal voice, and that but the flip side is you're quite a hard-nosed businesswoman. And so the practical side is very much part of your fabric. Tell me a bit about, or tell us a bit about how you got involved in producing and putting together the people that you're performing with. I mean, this is a band that you've had a lot of experience with.
It really came, this is my whole career has been an unexpected, organic, evolutionary type of process. When I had enough money to be making my second and third recordings, I remember learning about this guitarist who just come from Edmonton to Toronto called Brian Hughes, and I started working with him in 1988. Well, I still work with Brian Hughes, even though he's living in Los Angeles now. That when you find musicians that really, their musicianship is so incredible, there's a kind of creative empathy that it can exist, as well as a skill level that allows for the translation of that expression is so special. You really try and hang on to those people. So we've gathered them up as I've gone along. Caroline Lavelle, the cellist, that she lives in Cornwall, England. I mean, she's incredibly a beautiful player. And then Hugh Marsh, one of the gems of the Toronto music scene, who of course plays with artists all over the world and works with top-rated composers in Los Angeles. But he's another very amazing musician. So we've worked together for a number of years. I feel very, very lucky.
I don't think people realize how hard it is, particularly for you without a manager. You are your own manager. Financing a tour, organizing a tour, trying to get insurance during COVID, which is impossible. Like, I don't think people know how hard it is. It's interesting how much work goes into that.
It is. I mean, I have there's a team of three of us, and I've got another, financial person who's essentially fourth person. She just doesn't work out of my office here, but she works for me in another location. But it's full on, the four of us. But let's say, for example, this special consideration that you've mentioned with respect to COVID, that when we try to get back out on the road again, and we went to the insurance company, as we always do, in case something happens along the way, they said, "Oh, by the way, if you get COVID or anybody else, but if you get COVID, we're not covering your expenses." Well, I mean, when I set like the tour that I'm just about to go on now, I put up $500,000 of my own money to get the trucks and the buses and the sound equipment and just get things rolling. So if I come down with COVID the first week of the tour, anytime, I don't get any kind of coverage. So it really focuses the mind. So
Wow.
we've been working. We were very, very lucky to work with uh, uh, a doctor in Canada who's very well known and an expert in this field and developing protocols. So do we diminish the chances of me getting COVID uh, or anybody? I mean, last fall, Hugh got COVID, so he parked in a hotel for a week. The previous year, when we were out in Ontario and Quebec, Caroline came down with COVID and she sat in a hotel for a week. So you have to adjust the arrangements. I mean, that we can do that, and that's the least of my worries. It really is. And I think because I'm an employer, I also hold a lot of duty of care for the other members of the band and crew. We're living in little incubators, those tour buses with their bunks. We crawl into those buses at night and we travel overnight. So if anybody's sick, there's a good chance everybody will be sick. And yet at the end of the day, we're standing in front of or amongst tens of thousands of people. So it's a very severe industrial setting, a high risk setting. And so that's why we've tried to identify and adopt as strong protocols as we can.
Loreena, you're a privacy activist, and I'm I'm just thinking, how do you ask a privacy activist about that without them saying, "Well, it's none of your business, is it?" But I
Yeah.
am asking how. What does that entail?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a privacy activist. You're probably referring to a landmark privacy case I fought and won in the UK. Oh, I guess back in 2006, 2007. Uh, I think it's a subject that I hope is even of greater interest to the general public than ever, because we now have surveillance capitalism in the guise of all our devices. It's why I have this very simplified flip phone. I'm not on social media. I mean, I followed along the Cambridge Analytica story with the 2016 US election quite carefully. And I thought, well, this is devastating. So um, I do try at every corner to remind people that their devices and many of the platforms that they're on are surveilling them, and it's being weaponized against our societies. So,
I interviewed Carol Cadwallader, who was from Wales, she was a big part of revealing the whole Cambridge Analytica thing, and I for so many years I was really careful and didn't let anybody know anything, and I scoffed at everyone who said, "Well, if you don't have any secrets, then who cares?" And I thought, "Oh, well, that's just." But now I've kind of given up. Like there's just so much going on in that world, and it's almost impossible to stop it. Can you still? So you say you're not an activist, and yet you obviously still care. I still care, but I've kind of given up.
oh, I haven't. I mean, my concerns lie far beyond just privacy, which of course is a human right that is spoken to the European Convention, and the UN Declaration. Maybe it's the other way around. Um, It's, when you come to unfettered, unregulated technology, you've got a great list of perils. Privacy, of course, is one, but you've got a whole list of things to do with child development or youth. You've got bullying, sextortion, suicide, human trafficking, addictions. I mean, there's just a massive laundry list. And so we've been trying to work with the school boards here in Stratford in this area to encourage them to get the smartphones out of the classrooms and so on. And this was actually before the Surgeon General in the United States came out with his report this past spring. But it's devastated the unregulated technology. Of course, the music industry was the first industry to be struck by that. So, in fact,
You
that
should know.
I know intimately because that one half of the industry is broken now. It used to be so when the one half meaning the side of the industry where you make music and you can commodify it, the other half is the touring side. So on the first half, back in the day when it was just CD or vinyl, artists such as myself would get paid, let's say, 25 cents per song. Now in the streaming services like Spotify, which ran many, many years without even making a profit. So it was quite predatory. I might make, or artists might make about 10 cents per thousand plays. Or Google Play, you might
Wow.
get 0.00013 cents per play. So if you're up at the Taylor Swift or Justin Bieber league, you can actually make some serious money. But it's really killed the create a large part of the middle creative class of the music industry. That whole ecosystem. I remember making a presentation to the Heritage Committee in Ottawa with respect to copyright reform and setting out this massive ecosystem of suppliers that and people, whether they're the studios and the engineers and their suppliers, administrators, the graphic designers, the photographers, the caterers, the travel, this whole ecosystem, then it's just more or less gone. And it hasn't been replaced by, it's put certain genres of music under threat, not unlike species, And I worry that there'll be a different version of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring as a result of this. So I have pretty harsh feelings about the unregulated technology companies. It's been somewhat gratifying to see that they're now appearing before Parliament and Congress. I finished reading a fabulous book called Blood in the Machine by Brian Merchant, and he's the technology writer for the Los Angeles Times. And he writes about the parallels of our current state with these companies and the Industrial Revolution, and when people had their autonomy of their lives, and it might not have been very rich, but they were able to feed themselves and know their neighbors and do business. When fossil fuels with certain technology came along, they were ripped from those countryside cottage industries and into these harsh workplaces. And I think the employment side, and now with AI coming so fast, I think this is just going to get graver and graver.
Wow.
So,
Happy.
yeah.
Very, very happy.
You've been you moved to Stratford. You've been there, I guess, most of your adult life now.
That's
And
true.
yeah. And so I mean, we know Stratford because of the festival, and I'm sure that's one of its draws for you. But what speaks to you about Stratford? What does Stratford say to you?
Oh, as I mentioned earlier, I moved here in '81 to work at the festival theater for years, and then set off in making my first recording. I couldn't have afforded to live in Toronto, so I just stayed on. But over the years, I've come to realize that there are parallels between my small hometown in Morden, Manitoba, and here. Morden is about 80 miles to Winnipeg. Stratford's about 80 miles to Toronto. Stratford is a very, very beautiful place. Uh, this building that I'm in is a schoolhouse redundant schoolhouse I bought in 2000 and converted it into a family center, and it's quite close to the river. And of course, there's all the wonderful things that come, the restaurants and those add-ons from the festival. But I also like the fact that it's still mixed. You feel that agricultural texture. You still have the manufacturing sector. See, it's not all dolled up. It's real, and for me, I like that.
So it's almost as important and focused as the red hair question at the beginning.
Oh, let's hear it.
Yeah. Do you what do you like now? You go on the road. You put $500,000 towards an insurance policy. It's a big deal. And I'm wondering, how do you keep your voice? Like, do you gargle? Are there certain secrets that you can? So I warned you. It was a big.
Well,
Wendy asks the tough questions. I'll tell
I
you.
can tell that. Well, and in actual fact, as I also mentioned earlier, I sang in a children's choir from the age of 5. But when I was a teenager, I took about 4 years of classical voice. So I learned how to project my voice in a way that I wouldn't harm it. I knew what it would be physically like if I sang incorrectly. So I think that being armed with that at an early age was half the battle. But when I'm on tour, leading up to a tour, I go into kind of training, meaning that I'll go running and just make sure that I'm as strong and as fit as possible. I'm very, very careful about my rest and what I eat, and that's really it. So when we're on tour, I have a routine. About 3 o'clock or 2:30, I'll go for a half an hour run. I'll go to back to the venue and have a shower. The band is there doing sound check. I'll meet them on the stage for sound check. Supper at 6, and it's sort of like that. It's nothing more complicated.
No sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Not anymore.
Party till dawn.
Not anymore. But back in the day. The album is called The Road Back Home, and it should be out when you're listening to this. And you're on tour. And you're touring in Ireland as well?
No, we're not doing that.
I made that up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I wish.
So where are you?
Oh, we're in the Netherlands. We're in Germany, Italy, Switzerland, England, sort of like that.
All those
Sounds
places.
fabulous.
Yeah,
We're
no, it sounds
Lovely
great.
places.
2 nights in Paris.
And it's wonderful to hear that you still care about issues. You still care so much about the music, and it's been lovely. It's been lovely to talk to you, and I'm glad you still have red hair.
With a little help from my friends, right?
Loreena McKennitt, The Road Back Home. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. Lovely to speak with you.
Oh, she's not in Ireland. Oh well, she's
Oh,
Irish.
you know what? You make me laugh. You actually said wow, you're touring. You're decrepit pretty much. Wow, you're getting up there.
Yeah, well, she's in her 60s, so
She's
you
the
know.
same age as us.
No. I'm 12, and so
I know
you're-
she's a little
you're
bit. She is a
13.
little bit older, but no, old decrepit people. Still.
I just find it so
work.
fascinating that there's so many interesting people in their 60s and 70s, and
And
apparently
beyond.
there's who are like still out there, and they're still like getting in a bus, and they're still
Bruce
appearing on the
Cockburn.
stage. Yeah,
Bruce Coverd's 78.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at who's our girl, except she's not our girl, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's got a podcast where she only talks to women of a like dare I say it, elderly.
No, I don't
I
think
bet-
you're allowed to say that word. Yeah,
Oh.
she's still got red hair. No, she doesn't. But
Red hair is very hard to maintain. That's one of the reasons why I didn't hang on to it, because it fades to pink very quickly, and it's
Well,
just
my
it's not
aunt
easy.
tried to have red hair, and it came out green for her wedding.
You must have done something terribly wrong. Because they're opposites on the color wheel. But anyway, no, she's very cool. And we were going to ask her about her son, but we didn't.
Yeah, because I had a child later in life. I wasn't quite elderly, but it was later in life. And so did she. And yeah, I wanted to
Which is-
ask her about that.
yeah.
So, especially being so careful about the media. And I
Yeah.
have sort of given up. So it's nice to hear that people still really care. Like I still really care. And I think that the world's gone nuts, but I'm also, I'll click here. Yeah, I'll click here.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. Also, because she did, one of the reasons why she got involved in this privacy thing originally is that she had a dear friend who wrote a book, which was kind of a tell-all. It's not that she had anything awful to say about Loreena, but she felt that she'd been betrayed. And so that makes you very antsy when you're talking to somebody who is, very understandably protective about their privacy. And if she wanted to talk about her son, then she would have. So, but it's not like you to back down, Wendy Mesley. You tend to get in there like a terrier. And
Yeah, well, I'm a
Yeah.
terrier, but I also have secrets. So please don't tell anybody.
well, okay. I can't think of one that the world doesn't know. But anyway, you can trust me most of the time.
Women of Ill Repute was written and produced by Maureen Holloway and Wendy Mesley, with the help from the team at the Sound Off Media Company, and producer Yet Belgraver.